You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
This is the last of my Twilight Zone series. I was working on this message when we had to move to online services. And at that time, I didn't feel we could continue with the Twilight Zone because I felt like, oh my, I feel like we're living in it. So we shifted, and I did a series on living our principles in a time of pandemic. But now we're going back to the Twilight Zone one last time. Here is Serling's opening for this episode of the Trade-Ins. He says, Mr. and Mrs. John Holt, aging people who slowly and with trembling fingers turn the last pages of a book of life and hope against logic and the preordained that some magic printing press will add to this book another limited edition. But these two senior citizens happen to live in a time of the future where nothing is impossible, even the trading of old bodies for new. Mr. and Mrs. Holt, in their twilight years, who are about to find that there happens to be a zone with the same name. So I'm going to show just the beginning of this episode. I was not able to get a really good quality video of it, but this will give you an idea of what this couple was like and the salesperson, Mr. Vance, was like.
You're 79 years old, Mr. Holt.
Yes.
And you, Mrs. Holt?
I'm 74. I was 74 last May.
Let me just take a look at the medical history. Great deal of sickness, Mr. Holt.
Some?
Sorry to hear that. Are you in pain now?
Some.
He's in great pain. It's fairly constant now. It doesn't seem to let up.
Which is one of the reasons the New Life Corporation is in existence. We alleviate pain, Mr. and Mrs. Holt.
Oh.
We make it a thing of the past. Do you know what we deal in?
No.
We deal in youth, Mr. and Mrs. Holt. We deal in new life. Yes.
New?
Our stock in trade is simply rebirth.
Rebirth.
Could you tell us what is involved?
Easily. The process is quick and painless. And we've constructed other bodies. Bodies that are perfect in composition, concept, construction. Physiologically and psychologically, you'll find that you're just as you are now, but in a different body, a younger body in the prime of health, physically and emotionally close to perfection. The lifespan of any one of our human receptacles is roughly 112 years.
100?
Tell me, my dears, how long have you been married?
50 years.
A rich life. A happy one. A full one, I'm sure, and you don't want this relationship to end.
No, Mr. Vance, it can't end. Marie is... She's all I've got. She's all I care about, you see. You're quite right, Mr. Vance. It cannot end.
Of course. Well, now, why don't I show you some of the models we have?
Models?
Yes.
Models?
So that you can select two that appeal to you.
All right. Come, let's have a look at the models.
Wonderful.
So they go to see the models and pick out a pair they like. Mr. Vance tells them that 98% of couples have been happy with the quality of the swap. but the company does offer a guarantee that if they change their minds afterwards within 1 week, the swap procedure can be reversed. The swap costs $5,000 per body. That was in $1962, which equates to $42,450 now. I used my calculator to figure that out with Greg's help. John and Marie only have $5,000, and government regulations prohibit extension of credit for the procedure. Since John's health problems and constant pain make a body swap particularly imperative for him, Marie suggests that he go ahead with it and get the procedure done. But he says, no, he didn't want to do that unless they could do it together. So he has a plan. Here's a poker game. John attempts to earn the rest of the money in a high-stakes poker game. He loses most of his $5,000 over several hands. And in a final hand, he must put the remaining amount on the table in order to call against Mr. Faraday, the only other player who is not folded on that hand. By coincidence, the total pot for that hand is $5,000. Faraday inquires why John is taking such a risk. John explains the situation, and he reveals a hand of 3 kings. Moved by sympathy, Faraday lays his winning hand, which was 3 aces, face down on the table and says John is the hand's winner, thus allowing him to leave with the same amount he started with. John admits to Faraday that he cannot endure the physical pain any longer and that he's going to have the procedure, then use his youthful body to earn the money for Marie to follow. So John is transferred to a new body. Here he is, and he tells Marie how wonderful their new life will be. But Marie breaks down in tears, unable to relate to a husband so much younger than her. I don't really understand why, but she just couldn't relate to it. So John opts for the return clause, willing to cope with his pain in order for them to be together. His old body fully restored, John and Marie depart towards an uncertain future, but their love for each other is stronger than ever. And that is what happens in that Twilight Zone episode. And it's called The Trade-Ins. Now, most of us have traded in things in our life, you know, especially our cars. This is my 2008 Prius. I drove it for 10 years and put almost 150,000 miles on it before trading it in. You all may remember that the back was covered with bumper stickers. And then here's a picture of my 2018 Prius without any bumper stickers. Both of my sons were worried about my safety riding around South Georgia with bumper stickers that advocated for things like love and equality and peace and such. So I promised I would not put any on this car to alleviate their fears. Now, as many of us have gotten older, we've also learned about the possibility of trading in body parts. Even with our bodies, we're already doing some of this. Some of you may now be bionic, having metal hips or knees, right? You know, and others may have even received organ transplants. Others may have adjusted their hair color or had plastic surgery to alter something they considered problematic or try to retain a more youthful appearance. So, but no judgment here. No one likes the additional pain that comes with aging. And all of us would enjoy feeling and perhaps looking more vibrant and energetic, not tired and worn out. Now, our friend Mark Twain tells us age is an issue of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. And indeed, I do find that when I can divert my mind to other places, you know, through music or so doing some work, those kinds of things, sometimes the pain that I've been feeling in my back or hips just disappear, at least from my conscious thought. But you know, it's not really gone. Your brain is just producing natural pain blockers, and hallelujah for them. Yet, I also find that there is much about my golden years that is wonderful. I sure would not want to be in my 20s again. Most of us have traded in various things in our life, and we are happy that we are able to do those kinds of things. But I do think that all of us, even with that possibility, are going to need to face aging, even you young folks over there, you young folks, and try to understand it more. Now, as most of you know, I'm a religious naturalist who considers science to be sacred. So I'm going to briefly summarize some of the science of aging that we know about. I have some questions and answers here. So here's the first one. What happens as you age? As we get older, our skin wrinkles because it becomes thinner and less elastic. It gets drier too, and it makes less sweat and oil. Your bones become more visible as you store less fat beneath your skin. Inside the body, your bones and muscles become weaker. Your memory gets worse, and your immune system cannot fight disease as easily. Why? What makes you age? Your body is made up of about 100 million cells, and some of them, including brain cells, are rarely replaced, but others are constantly replaced as existing cells multiply to make new ones. However, each cell can only multiply a certain number of times before it dies. As more cells are lost or damaged, you start to show signs of aging. For example, the fewer skin cells you have, the thinner your skin becomes. And some of us notice now when we get even a little scratch, it'll start bleeding because our skin's gotten thin. What damages your cells? Harmful molecules are constantly bombarding our bodies. The worst offenders are glucose, a type of sugar, and free radicals, byproducts of energy production. Both can damage the proteins, fats, and DNA that make up your cells. When you're young, your body's able to repair most of this damage. But as you get older, the repair process is less efficient. Some researchers think that boosting our natural defenses against these chemical onslaughts may lessen the effects of aging. And if you watch any television, you notice that before the news shows comes on, you get all these ads about all these different vitamin things, and it's on social media too. If you're my age, you get, there it comes up. You just need to take this, and it's going to fight off all these kinds of things. Now, also, we know, most of us too, that there are other things that cause damage to our body and skin that we can do something about. For instance, well, we know that the sun damages our skin, and I wear my hat when I go outside, and of course, smoking. Well, can you prevent aging? A healthy lifestyle can help you feel younger and fitter for longer. Even people in their 90s can improve their muscle strength through regular exercise. Most research on aging aims to improve our health and quality of life as we grow old, but not make us live forever. Scientists are looking for ways to avoid or even repair the damage that causes aging. So what happens when the brain's function declines? Some of us will develop diseases of the brain that affect our memory and how we understand and communicate. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. Certain proteins have been found to damage brain cells. One type of protein called plaques, which impair brain cells' functions, causing them to die. And there's a different type of protein that forms tangles, like you get tangles in your hair, you get tangles in your brain, which change the structure of the brain cells. We also know that certain chemicals in the brain, which transmit messages between the neurons, become depleted. So you know you can't remember that name quite as quickly that you want to remember. Most forms of dementia cannot be cured, but research is continuing to identify treatments, including the development of drugs to help alleviate some of the symptoms. Y'all depressed yet? Well, now at least we know where we're going, but that doesn't really brighten my day. I read an article from WebMD, though, called The Secrets of Aging Well. The Secrets of Aging Well. Well, these aren't really secrets. We know most of them already. Things like avoiding cigarettes, maintaining a healthy weight by eating right, of course, and, of course, exercising regularly. but they also mention some things from scientific studies that may not be as obvious to us. One is good adjustment or coping skills. That's our ability to make lemonade out of the lemon. Some of us were talking about some ways we've done that during the pandemic. How are we using this pandemic in some ways for something good? Our second way is pursuing education. Now, you don't have to get a degree, but continue to be a student. Read, and read books, read on the internet. It's not too hard to do anymore because we have a lot of things available to us. So continuing being a student. And then another is maintaining strong social relationships, including a stable marriage. Now, I think we could all say amen to the need for strong social relationships. But do we have to be married? Do we have to be married? What's that all about? When folks do these studies, they have all these variables they put into the computer to see which predict healthy aging. And being married is a predictor, especially for men. But I think we might examine what's in a marriage that makes this difference, that isn't being measured sometimes in other kinds of relationships. What is it? Oops. People who are married have a close relationship to someone who they're committed to, who usually they can talk to, who can help them when they need help, people who love them. And I do think these things are important, but I also think we can achieve them without marriage. Now, you all may know that I once preached a sermon called Marry, Marry, Quite Contrary. If you missed it, it's still on my sermons page, because I had planned to never marry again after my first marriage ended in 1998 after almost 30 years. But sweet Greg changed my mind, and I'm glad he did. Nevertheless, I could still preach that sermon, I think, with integrity. You don't have to get married to have good, loving relationships with friends, to have confidence you can talk with, to have someone you can call on in times of need. And that's one reason I'm glad we have our UU congregations. We can be there for one another, connect with folks here and from partnerships with folks that we have that can check on each other. That's one good outcome that's come of this pandemic, that we've been more intentional about checking on each other and seeing about each other and helping one another. One of the studies I read indicated that we need social networks and confidence, people where we can actually talk to about things, even things like our health, and be heard. Now, my husband was telling me that his mom was in some book club and they got tired of all the organ recitals, meaning that all they did was go in and talk about what kind of surgeries they had. I know you can overdo this, but indeed we do need to have folks that we can talk to and be heard about our health. We don't have to hide to everyone that maybe we're depressed or that our back hurts or whatever. The stress of having to pretend to be healthy when you are not can also take its toll. And I, for one, can vouch for that. We all need to have folks that we can be real with. And that's where the slide comes in, be real. So I'm going to share this just from a personal perspective about me. And that is that I am your pastor, right? So know that you can be real with me. Now, we don't have those little confessionals like the Catholics do, but you can share things with me and be real. And just because I'm your minister doesn't mean I'm the only one you can be real with. I would hope that we could learn to do that with others in our congregations as well. Yet I also realize that if everyone is being real at once, it may be a little much, and if you're doing it all the time. So there has to be a balance to it. You have to think about a balance to it, right? Let it be a dance. Yes, Let it be a dance we do. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you in the good times and the bad times too. Share about the good times as well. Let it be a dance. And dance with love in your heart. Now, this is a message not just for older folks, but young ones too, because we are all aging. Here are Rod Serling's closing words from the trade-ins, and it's pretty good closing words for this sermon and this message as well. This is from Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. He says, love gives not but itself, and takes not from itself. Love possesses, nor would it be possessed. For love is sufficient unto love. I'm sorry, love possesses not. That clear. Possesses not, nor would it be possessed. I think it's very important. I need to get that in right. Love possesses not. You're not anybody's property, nor would it be possessed. For love is sufficient unto love. Not a lesson, he says, just a reminder from all the sentimentalists in the Twilight Zone. So may you have wonderful people and friends that love you, and good long health, a long good life, and age well like good wine. Amen. Blessed be.